Are you fucking serious?
Oh no, you caught me.
No, not this again. We already did this skit.
No, I'm wearing bunny ears this time.
No, it's definitely the same skit. That's the Zombieland Saga figurine. This is our third video. You can't have run out of ideas already. Do you at least have a backup?
Why would I have made that?
I don't know. You spent all your time rotting in this hidden dungeon. You know what? I'm not even going to argue with you. Is the show at least meta?
What?
You know, is the show meta? The skit's meta and self-referential. The others were at least pretending to be about the show. What about this has anything to do with Bunny Girl? Fucking believable. Now, I think you'll see the title Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai paired with this splash art and think, yeah, I'm good, thanks. And normally I would agree with you, but don't run just yet.
In fact, we would go as far as to say to act in opposition to your reaction to an image like this. If your idea of a good time is ogling a scantily dressed woman, it's you that I suggest turns and leaves. Maybe just stay away at that, like permanently. I don't want you here.
The first episode synopsis and the overall premise of the show are two very separate things, so I'll do my best to convey the pitch without spoilers. Basically, it's this paired with this. And if you don't know what any of that means, that's okay.
Sakata sees a classmate of his while he's sitting in a library dressed like this, and she's seemingly imperceptible to others. After he goes up to her and talks to her about it, they try to get to the bottom of why this is the case. This veil of a generic rom-com, however, quickly reveals itself to actually be a lens from which the show uses to view concepts such as isolation, high school gossip, existence, perception, and cliques.
So what does that high-minded artsy stuff have to do with a Playboy bunny suit? Well, I have some interpretations on that, but it involves spoilers, so we'll get back to that later. I know for some of you waiting for an answer on that might be a deal breaker for watching the show, and I totally understand if that applies to you.
If we could get past this, how? Yeah, just ignore the fucking Playboy bunny. But if we could get past this, though, what we'd be left with is a wonderfully earnest depiction of young adults. The problems that they see at the time are given the genuine weight they deserve, and though depicted as supernatural phenomenon, these conflicts are actually extremely grounded.
If we have a complaint, if we have a second complaint, it would be the art design. It's very beige high school with brown uniforms. Some color definitely would have helped here, but the other technical aspects of the show vastly outweigh it, so...
I would love to elaborate on these things, but without spoilers, I simply can't. So, before spoilers, some formalities. We will not be recounting the plot, as by proceeding, we assume you've seen the series. The following will be spoiled. Rascal does not dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. We didn't watch the movie. My score for the series was a 7 out of 10.
My score for the series was an 8 out of 10.
Alright, spoilers. Let's go.
First, our interpretations of Rascal does not dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, which for ease we'll just refer to as Bunny Girl. Normally we wouldn't recount the events of the plot, but with a series that's this open to interpretation, it feels important to disclose what we thought the events actually meant. This could be a refresher if you haven't seen it in a bit, or it could provide some new perspective on what you just saw.
The through line of the anime described in simplest terms would be the phrase, perception is reality. It depicts a series of metaphysical manifestations that convey an otherwise difficult to explain mental state and social phenomenon. In English, it's like if your puberty was a person that you could talk to, instead of a period of time in which you take your newly developed emotions and put them in a food processing.
For the female lead, is it fair to call her that? For Mai, this manifests as her becoming invisible to the people around her, and those that previously had memories of her forgetting them. This stems from her largely keeping her head down and not talking much in public, causing her to fade from the public eye. Quotes from our scientific best girl, like, the brain only sees the things that it wants to, and the only way to confirm the existence of something is by observing it, help confirm this. A parallel to be drawn here is between her life as a child star and her post-entertainment lifestyle. The quantifiable number of eyeballs on her has decreased, leading to a lingering feeling of being small, a loss of impact on the world around you, becoming obsolete, at least comparatively.
For Tomoe, she initiates a fake relationship with Sakata to appear more interesting to her friends. This kicks off a double-ended narrative of wanting to appear a certain way to others, not necessarily being harmful, but more of a misunderstanding of what it means to be you as a person. This arc also poses a commentary on feelings and their undeniable nature. Even though this started as a fake relationship, she ends up catching feelings for Sakata, and she is able to re-roll the dice of time over and over again in an attempt to make him fall for her, but he stays committed in his relationship because his feelings are true.
And Futaba splits into two people shortly after this, as a reflection of interpersonal dissonance. In this case, that interpersonal dissonance is the result of her romantic feelings for Kunimi. She feels like she doesn't fit the mold of the kind of person that he would be interested in. This causes her to act contrary to her ideals, but she likes the attention it gets her. This creates a copy of her which the original, in turn, envies. This is corrected by her friends letting her know that they accept her no matter what she decides to do. There is no fake you. You just are who you are.
Nodoka feels overshadowed by her sister and pressured by her mother. This leads to a simultaneous idolization and a harboring of resentment for her sister. But after they both go all Freaky Friday, that can't be right. Did I write that? Through changing places, they gain a new perspective on each other's lives, stresses, and individual pressures that they both have, and that envy is tempered.
Lastly, Kaede, who's been experiencing PTSD-related amnesia that the audience has hitherto been unaware of. This stems from bullying over text, which additionally starts manifesting as cuts mysteriously appearing on her arms and legs. This alludes to something extremely obvious that I don't want to address in depth right now, so we're going to move on. She's buried under this trauma and loses herself. For most of the show, she's not her. The time spent around her is lost, and she's unable to be who she is because of this massive mental and emotional hurdle. You know, just happy things.
Perfect. Now let's get to the juicy stuff. How they went about doing this. Getting all of this material into a 12-episode series is no easy task, but the pacing is so fantastic that it doesn't feel rushed at all. So, the writing.
The aspects of the writing are by far the most intimidating part of the series to analyze. The characters' exposition, organization, and dialogue are really difficult to separate and talk about separately because of how deftly they're woven together. What follows is as thorough of a dissection as we can manage of what we see as the best part of the show.
Despite the elements of the writing being so tightly woven together, we do have to start somewhere, so let's start with how the characters are communicated to us. Because having these fleshed out characters interact in realistic ways communicates to us as an audience very effectively their traits, because you don't actually have to say them out loud, we can just observe them.
For example, the interaction between Kunimi's girlfriend and our main boy shows us how Sakata feels about his poor public image, his ideas on public perception in general, his relationship with Kunimi, and how everyone involved feels about those things. And it manages to convey that mostly with just their mannerisms while they talk. The delivery is extremely smooth compared to the standard sort of,
"Yep, that's me. I'm super cool and don't care what anyone thinks. And this is my best buddy, Kunimi. And ugh, there's his mean girlfriend who is mean. She's always talking to me about my image." This cuts back on the would-be necessary exposition and shifts the pacing into a higher gear, and it's just flat out more fun to watch. It feels a lot less like you're having a wiki read to you, and a lot more like you're watching genuine people interact with each other. Speaking of which, the decision to make these characters not only fleshed out and consistent, but also competent, cuts back on the awful rom-com trope of cheap cutaways due to miscommunication. This, like what I mentioned before, saves a ton of time, and also I find it to be more narratively satisfying. I couldn't imagine the torturous experience that would be watching these supernatural puzzles get solved in the confines of a show that drags its feet all the time. And this is not to be understated. These problems could have been drug on and on and on for triple the length that they were, but instead, it is wholly captivating and endlessly satisfying to watch these cast members deftly maneuver through these situations.
On the subject of supernatural phenomena, the show does have to introduce these strange occurrences somehow, and it does so through pseudoscientific explanations from our girl Futaba, which, let's just get it out of the way, is stupid. But I think the show is well aware of how dumb it is. It treats these happenings as a means to an end, a way to convey these complex emotional states, and these explanations are just provided to give the audience a way to accept the truth of Yeah, alright, there's 2 Futubas now, without losing too much traction.
To double down on the character writing, we could look at the sequence where Mai puts Sakta to sleep, but is still upset when Sakta forgets about her. She's observant enough to notice his stupor, cunning enough to slip him the sleep medication, but also still suffers the emotional consequences of her decision. She's totally open to having these strange situations explained to her and play along, but draws the line at normal things like having him sleep over at another girl's house. These are all things that we could learn about Mai that Bunny Girl never really insists upon us. The fact that the show is able to deliver this much information, more than a lesser show would in double the time, is what's appealing about the series. It's a pacing and character writing masterclass.
If I did have a complaint about the writing, it would be that it feels a little bit disjointed at times. I suspect this is because the act structure came about from it being adapted from multiple light novels, but that's not really an excuse. Mai and Futaba don't have the problem because they're around the whole time and play important roles in the narrative. Meanwhile, Toma and Nodoka just kind of crash land into the show like, hey, it's my turn, do me, and then vanish like my father after I failed my 8th grade math finals. So the writing's a slam dunk. What about the rest of it?
If you need a breakdown of the technical prowess that we're dealing with here, let me introduce to you Professor Rat, who's going to break down one very brief scene in particular, which is the meeting of Mai and her mother.
Alright, so the first thing to discuss is how this scene is framed tightly around Mai and her mother to show the intensity of them meeting. Psych, idiot! This isn't about them meeting at all! The framing is set up as a sucker punch so that you think it's about the conflict between Mai and her mother meeting, which has been foreshadowed for the entire runtime of the series up until this point, and instead it's actually used to ramp up the stakes of the other conflict.
This emotional impact on both of the main characters allows for Mai's stoic exterior to reveal her more sensitive self, and for Sakta's previously established empathy to be revealed that he actually does really care about Mai. This is great characterization for the rest of the story, and also...
We ain't talking about the writing anymore, we're talking about the science. The science. Like how, for multiple scenes after this original reveal, Mai's position looking down or her face otherwise out of shot as if to show that her emotions are reflecting inwards, as if she's afraid to show the vulnerability that was inflicted upon her with this newest revelation.
This is then paired with her asking questions to her transparent reflection on the train like, can you see me?
Now you're talking science! It's these kinds of little touches that let this show stand out from the rest of the high school romance slice of life crowd and give it that like emotional punch that this kind of thing desperately needs, as you can see by these graphs over here.
Hey, I think that might be enough science for now. I think we've had enough of the science zone.
One more piece of science.
Could you at least make it a criticism, please?
As long as I get to do science. I guess as far as criticisms are concerned, the colors are pretty bland. As you can see on these bar graphs, there's a lot of beige walls and brown high school uniforms. The editing and framing are all fantastic enough to keep it visually interesting, but I feel like a little pop of color would have been good, taking it just over the edge. So, listen. Now you know that I like this show, right? So let's talk about the Playboy bunny in the room. This isn't exactly out of character for anime, but I can't help but feel like this is below the pen of someone who could write a show this well. It just feels dumb for a show that's this smart. It just feels out of place.
I'm just torn. Like, on one hand, they were able to write Mai as a strong individual who's caring, well-rounded, and extremely competent. But then on the other hand, they put her in a literal Playboy outfit, plastered the splash art and title in it, and turn everyone away who finds that distasteful. Which, for the record, not enough people find that distasteful.
But something that muddies the waters a little bit is that they're using the bunny suit for practical purpose. She knows that if someone could see her, that they'd stare and she'd be able to identify them. I guess it's a smart way of identifying if she's actually invisible. Not sure why it had to be a bunny suit, but okay. But hold on, I've got something of an interpretation. Not an excuse, just an interpretation.
Our interpretation is of the entertainment industry that she just left. Audience gaze and exploitation are concurrent themes between that industry and this outfit. Tacit sexualization of famous personalities is a damaging reality of the industries that profit from this. The whole swimsuit thing backs all this up.
So the bunny suit serves a purpose in the narrative. Great, what's the problem? A few, actually. Anime is already awash with ecchi garbage fires, and you blend in. How am I supposed to know that this was supposed to be a representational drama about the turmoil of young adults? What about this is going to tell me that?
Also, it's just gross. You're probably aware that anime as a medium has a stigma of over-sexualization, especially of minors, and while I would agree with you that labeling the entire medium with it and dismissing it all as hentai is a bit silly, it's very difficult to argue with a straight face that it isn't deserved, especially when this is the same community that has little insular code words, so that you don't have to say the quiet part out loud. I watched this show a while ago as a joke because I thought it'd be a very easy thing to make fun of because of this title and splash. Imagine my shock when I loved it. I just wish it didn't come with this baggage. Like, I understand that the bunny suit has some sort of metaphorical meaning, but I wonder if it was worth it. And for my money, it wasn't.
Despite all this, I absolutely love this show. It's a shining example of what the slice of life genre could be, breaking the mold of generic rom-com or high school melodrama that relies entirely on miscommunications and over-sexualization.
Writing the script was a nightmare due to the sheer quality of storytelling presented to us, as evidenced earlier by the way that we cut up a really small scene and got a lot of information from it. So sorry if the script kind of came off as humorless. It was very difficult to keep it lighthearted and inject some funny stuff when taking a scalpel to this writing.
As it stands, we highly recommend you check this one out. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's a wonderfully earnest production that neither of us will be forgetting anytime soon.